They lied to me. They deceive me for not knowing the truth. And if I tell you that you have lived deceived until today, it is time for you to know. Jesus said, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." To come to the knowledge of the truth, two elements must be possessed: a sincere desire to know it, and a willingness in the heart to obey it. Sunday is considered by a vast majority of the day of rest. And for many, it constitutes the seventh day of their week. Since ancient times, various people have respected this day to the point of including it in their constitution under penalty of fines in some cases. Death if the day is transgressed. Currently, from a religious point of view, most of the Protestant Christians, denominations, as well as the Catholic Church, promote weekly rest by attributing solemnly to Sunday. However, many Protestants are unaware that this day has nothing to do with Christianity being humanly instituted. They ignore that they have deviated from the original course and have left aside the true day of rest that is expressed in the Bible. From the time of Christ, his followers and himself observed Saturday as a day of rest. The Bible marks it as the seventh day. In the Ten Commandments, especially in the fourth, it is clearly expressed: remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath, or the feast of the Lord thy God. The name, numbering, and the use that was given to this day is evident. How is it then that the Sunday is held as a day of rest? Many people are surprised to hear the above commandment, as they were instructed another commandment in their childhood. In the Catechism Synthesis of the Catholic Church, what has been installed in society for years has been reproduced, referring to the day of rest. In the Ten Commandments, it is cited: "You shall sanctify the holy days." Command to worship God on Sunday and days of obligation. There is clear contradiction between what the Bible presents and what the Catholic Church teaches. The false teachings being adopted by Protestants. To clarify this fact, an analysis of history must be made. In the 4th century, Rome was going through difficult times. The empire was divided by two great spiritual currents. On the one hand, paganism, and on the other hand, Christianity. Prompt action was needed to rally the citizens. Constantine the Great was a pagan, and he decided to unify the Rome into one religion, Christianity. The ability of this man to convert sun-worshipping pagans to the new religion was amazing. He created a hybrid religion that could be accepted by both parties. Even the day of rest that many Christians take as the Lord's Day is an idea they borrowed from the pagans. The Christians respected the Sabbath, but Constantine altered it imperceptibly to coincide with the day of pagans' sun worship. In the year 321, the day dedicated to the pagan, the sun god, is instituted by the emperor when he dictates what is known as the first public measure that imposed the observance of Sunday. And this edict required that the inhabitants of the cities rest in the venerable day of the sun. Anyone could verify that Sunday rest arose as a worship of the sun by reviewing the etymology of this word Sunday in the German Sonntag, which is equivalent to the day of the sun, and English Sunday. Sun is sun, and day is day. Sunday. After this event, exactly 15 years later, the Catholic Church pronounced and adopted this day as sacred, as reviewed by Reverend Geiermund. We observe Sunday instead of Saturday because the Catholic Church at the Council of Laodicea transferred the solemnity of the Saturday to Sunday. The Catholic leaders are aware, as can be seen, that a change has been made. For them, this change simply represents one more part of their faith, that the Church has such an authority that it can change what the Bible mentions. An issue that for the Protestants is an abomination and a blasphemy. However, the lack of the study of the Bible, as well as the ignorance regarding history, keeps them in the blind unconscious and obedience to the Vatican. For its part, the Vatican, in its multiple publications, asserts the following: the Protestants accepting Sunday instead of Saturday as a day for their public worship after the Catholic Church made the change. But the Protestant mind does not seem to recognize that. By observing Sunday, they are accepting the authority of the interlocutor of the Church, the Pope. This indicates that it was precisely after this change was made that the many Protestant Christians began to respect Sunday as a day of rest. There does not exist any reliable evidence that the apostles or the early churches kept or respected Sunday as a day of rest. It took more than 300 years after Christ for this day to begin to be observed. And the Catholic Church claims copyright for this change. This can be seen in the Catholic Record magazine. Sunday is our mark of authority. The Church is above the Bible, and this change to Sabbath observance is proof of the fact. The Catholic Record in London, Ontario. Without a doubt, it is the only argument that the Protestant Christianity can put forward if it wishes to defend this thesis of Sunday as a day of rest. What is contradictory is that they denounce the Catholic Church for having invalidated the Word of God when they follow its dictates. This was started by the Chancellor of the Archdiocese of Baltimore Smith, responding to the Cardinal in a letter. If Protestants follow the Bible, they would render worship to God on the Sabbath day. By keeping Sunday, they are following the law of the Catholic Church. Clearly, Saturday is a day of the Protestant Christianity. Such day observes as a day of rest, since it is the only day that is mentioned in the Bible as holy. If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of the Lord, it is evident that it is God Himself who attributes holiness to the Sabbath and properly calls it my holy day. It is necessary that you review your beliefs very well, and not by blindly led by what an eminent person or organization affirms. Such a case could be similar to what happened, anecdotally, with the philosopher Aristotle, who lived 350 years before Jesus Christ. He was the teacher of Alexander the Great and many other important men in history. He wrote several works that formed the foundation for many disciplines. In one of them, Aristotle defended what a spider was. He cataloged it as a small insect that has 6 legs. From then on, all the books related to etymology, which is the study of insects, took the theoretical base of Aristotle. They said that the spider was a small insect that had 6 legs. For 2,000 years, this definition and classification of the spider was maintained. Since the great sage, had indicated it. 2,000 years later, a French naturalist named Jean-Baptiste Lamarck, who had begun his scientific career as a botanist, but later became one of the founding professors of the National Museum of Natural History. As an expert on invertebrates, there he classified worms, mollusks, and other invertebrates, doing a job well ahead of its time. One day, he decided to take a spider and place it on the table to study it better. In the examination, he dissected it and then proceeded to connect its legs, discovering two great things. First, the spider was not an insect, but an arachnid. And secondly, that it had not 6 legs, but 8. 2,000 years of deception because simply no one had bothered to count the legs of the spider and corroborate what the great sage Aristotle had said. No one dared to question it. Unfortunately, many believe what they hear without verifying it. They blindly believe what their religion leaders tell them, deceived by not knowing the truth. The sun was hot. I traveled many kilometers. While on the road, I met an elderly man with a Bible in his hand. After the meet and greet, I asked him where he was reading in the Bible. He answered me in a low voice. I tell you something. My pastor is a great theologian, and I always listen to him. I have no need to read it when I have someone to explain it to me. So bright as his response, my immediate reaction was to approach to him and tell him, stop eating chewed food and take the whole grain bread of the Word of God. I will never have addressed an older person like that. But at that moment, it was not I who spoke. Even I was surprised at what had come out of my lips. And considering, if I had disrespected him in my mind, after a few seconds, with a thoughtful face he said to me, "You're right." We have two options. Admit we were wrong and change, or continue to live in delusion. My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee. But thou shalt be no priest to me, seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God. I will also forget thy children. Crowds prefer to listen and accept rather than investigate for themselves, which is willful ignorance. They congregate on Sundays, and some refrain from working on that day, believing they are honoring God on the day of rest established in the commandments, without realizing that this day is not the one originally established. They are indirectly worshiping the sun, and they have been victims of an audacious forgery. Now you know what they've never told you.